I, Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans, hereby command that you do not listen or subscribe to the Dragon Ball 4 Life podcast. Whatever you do, would you defy royalty? No! Bye!
Anime, we have your attention, please, and welcome to another episode of Dragon Ball 4 Life, where you come for the content, but you stay for the culture. And it's Friday. You know what that means. We have another brave challenger that has decided to answer the Dragoncall. But before we introduce our very special guest, you know who we are. As always, we are your hosts, the Fusion Dance Dons, a.k.a. the Mong Gods, a.k.a. the deadliest backcourt in podcasting. I am Broji, the Prince of all Sayings, Mr. Matthew Porter, a.k.a. Matty Ice, here with my counterpart, the Oob to my Majin Buu, my Dende one, going from the lookout to the cookout of Mr. Troto Trav. Talk to the people, Trav.
I mean, you know me. I stay chillin', and I love thy women like Krillin. But, you know, Matt, some would call us Switzerland because we remain neutral. We've interviewed villains. We've interviewed gods. We've interviewed humans. But today is special. Not only are we interviewing a hero and a villain, depending on what timeline you live in, but also an android. And no, I do not mean any messages received from this chat will be green. Our guest today has saved the multiverse. He was also an active participant in saving the demon realm as well. Like I said, our guest requirements have no boundaries. We are here conducting this interview today because this guest used his one wish to restore all of us back into existence.
Brought us back.
Honored and excited are only the tip of the scale for how we are feeling to introduce this guest. Please welcome voice actor, writer, and digital artist Chuck Huber.
Snaps all around, snaps all around, snaps all around. We now return to your regularly scheduled DB4L programming. So unfortunately, we got Thanos snapped. We blipped out. Technology betrayed us. The androids rose up, and we did lose like the very first couple minutes of our interview with Chuck. But pretty much all you guys missed is that growing up, him and his brother loved playing Dungeons and Dragons, and that what got him into like role playing and acting, which led him to a life of theater. And then from theater, he connected with, I believe he said, his college roommate who knew some people that were doing a little project called Dragon Ball. Funny aside, he thought that it was porn, and he wasn't too thrilled to kind of join up to do that. But he actually introduced a friend of the pod, friend of ours, Chris Sabat, who interviewed him for the role of Garlic Jr. And he did so good that he got the job right there on the spot and recorded his lines for Garlic Jr., the Dead Zone movie back in the 90s. And now we resume our interview. Wow. It stopped the recording.
So we missed all that.
so we'll put it aside into this again. So where we last left off, Chuck was telling us that how he moved out of Chicago because the winters were ferocious, and he moved back to Texas where it's better and way more affordable. And his time in theater had made him start to like put the feelers out for some voice acting, and he ran into a well-known person by the name of Chris Sabat, and we will resume the story right there.
So yeah, my buddy Brad Jackson gave me the audition info. He actually just gave me Sabat's cell phone number, which like is still his cell phone number to this day. And well, at least I think so. I don't know. I haven't texted him in a while, but and I went and auditioned, and the first thing I auditioned for was Garlic Jr. And he was like, "Oh man, that's great. Yeah, that was awesome." And then he was like, "Do you got time to record it like right now?" And I was like, "You mean I got the part?" He's like, "Oh yeah, dude, you got the part. We're kind of on a deadline." Like he had an episode to turn in, and he needed to get it recorded, and I was the last part that wasn't recorded. So I stayed right then, I think about 2 hours, and we were paid $35 an hour back in the day. So he like ripped a piece of notebook paper out of a spiral notebook. It was like, "Give me your address so I can send you a check." And I was like, "Oh, sure, dude, you're gonna send me a check. I believe you." And sure enough, I got a check, and it was an important check at the moment. You know, times were tight, and suddenly there was this extra $70, that I could deposit in my account and, you know, feed the children, the wife and children, and buy some groceries. And so I was like, all right, game on. Let's do this all day long. And, you know, back in the day, there weren't a lot of us doing it. So we got cast a lot. I mean, in Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, I'm Garlic Jr., I'm Emperor Pilaf, I'm Master Shen, I'm Mr. Shu, I'm Kibito,
So
I'm
everyone,
Android
all the side characters.
I'm Invisible Guy. So, you know, they just kept using us over and over and over again. So we ended up, you know, and then as the property became what it is, the global monster that it is today, suddenly you're connected to people in their childhoods in a way that I never expected to be. You know, you got parents who are sharing it with their children and their children sharing it with the grandchildren now. So I got what I call grand fans. So they're grandchildren. Yeah. Little 8-year-old kids, like, you know, 20 years ago, my grandpa loved Dragon Ball Z, and now I love Dragon Ball Z. So it's like, all right, game on.
Yeah, it's funny that a commonality between a lot of voice actors, because we actually just had a guest on, shout outs to Rafi, not too long ago. D&D seems to be a real big inspiration for a lot of people who have like migrated into like, you know, just nerd culture of voice acting. I guess, Trav, for us as like 90s kids, I guess like Pokemon would be like the D&D equivalent for us, like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! A little bit of Beyblades.
Right.
Like,
Beyblades.
Yes. I love Beyblade. Man, like I always
I was an asshole with Beyblades, I won't lie.
Yeah. Were you?
I bet you.
I got off the bus stop and was would fling them at kids, but like, these were like the metal joints. So like,
the MS ones.
I was a little asshole with it. So
nah, look, Beyblading was life, bro. I used to carry my little plastic stadium with me, like, trying to Bay battle. Let's get down on some cement.
And just to reiterate, to make sure that the recording got it, when Chuck when auditioned for Garlic Jr., he recorded it right on the spot. So just wanted to reiterate that, make sure that wasn't lost in the recording.
It's the only time I've been an actor for 32 years now. That's the only time that's ever happened in my entire life where I auditioned and immediately did the job.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, like, it's crazy because it's like, you know, obviously we're Dragon Ball fans, and, you know, like, so like hearing your voice is a little surreal right now, but like, so talk a little bit about like the mental prep and preparation that you get into when you receive a new role, you know, and like what you do to really embrace the character.
You know, most of what we do is taken from what the Japanese seiyuu does. You know, that's our first primary reference point, what was originally laid down. And you can't do what they do. The Japanese language has, because an anime comes from the kabuki tradition. Kabuki theater in Japan is a very heightened, stylized way of expressing. It's an art form that is incredible when done properly and really painful when done badly. And I'm like, that's just like anime. So yeah, that's sort of like, you know, like that really sort of the intonations that become pretty extreme. We don't necessarily have the ability in our language to intonate exactly the way they do in Japanese.
Different inflections, it would sound crazy in English.
Yeah, try to mimic that.
We try to take what did they do with the character? What's the character trying to do? What's the quality of the voice? What's the rate, the tempo, the volume, you kind of like get the basic structure of the character from what the seiyuu did. And then after that, you get to kind of put your own artistic interpretation into it. And always at all times trying to serve the story well, because the real art, when you think about it, the real art of any great anime begins and ends with the writers. It's a story. It's the story and the characters and the relationships that do it. Second to that, and a very close second, is the art. Is what is being drawn. Is it beautiful? Is it effective? Is it, emotionally impactful? And then third, when you get finally to the American dub, we get to participate a little bit, but our participation in making an anime great is mostly to do with not screwing it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always equate it to surfing. Like the anime is a wave, and as a dub actor, we get to surf on it, and our job is not to fall. Our job is to just stay balanced, stay floating through it, and make sure we're serving the art form well. And that's where we begin and end for sure.
Absolutely. And what you might have said this was Garlic Jr. like your first paid voice acting job, or were you like doing some little small things that kind of like led to like, oh, hey, this guy has like his voice fits what we're looking to get done?
Well, in Chicago, I was with an agency that was known for their voiceover. They had a very famous commercial voiceover artist named Larry Moran, the funny voice man. And we had the Tony the Tiger dude. They're great. Oh, yeah. I remember at one time they were renegotiating his contract. So we all got to audition for Tony the Tiger, which was like, man, that was a payday. You knew you were going to be like a millionaire if you scored that.
Do you remember your audition and how your interpretation of Tony the Tiger?
I think they're great. He ended up still doing it. It was just a negotiating tactic.
Yeah.
He was negotiating.
Okay.
And we kind of knew that, but you always get excited when you're auditioning for something. So I'd done commercial voiceover with my agency, and they had a studio in their agency, which was unique at the time. A lot of times, so back in the day, actors, if they were doing commercial voiceover auditions, used to have to go into the production company and audition in their studio and be recorded in their studio. But we were able to, and you'd have to schedule a time, and it was a little complicated. We were able to just go into our agency and record in the booth that they had, which, like most booths, was a modified closet. But it was that's where I started acting in front of a microphone for sure. And I remember at one point for Christmas, my oldest stepson, and I recorded for the family. We did like books on tape, but we made our own because all my brothers and sisters were having a bunch of kids, so there were all these nephews and nieces. And so we recorded tapes of different children's stories. We did, like Goodnight Moon and Very Hungry Caterpillar and I don't know.
Classics.
A bunch of classics that we
Little Red Hen.
Yeah. And so I've been doing it for a long time, but even when I got the role of Garlic Jr., I didn't think about it. It wasn't a concern for me in terms of like, I wasn't focused on it. It was literally, it was fun. The dudes doing it were all cool and chill and like to goof around and have fun. There was really no pressure because we didn't, for all I knew, we were recording this and they were being stuck in a closet somewhere. I didn't even know it got on. like when it got on Cartoon, I didn't even know it was on Cartoon Network. Suddenly I heard like I was like, what? Sonny and Sean and Stephanie are traveling around the country in a Humvee, like promoting I was like, how'd they get that gig? I want that gig. That seems cool. And then that's when I finally became aware that like, oh, this is on television and people are watching it. And I had no idea. I was like, oh, that's cool. But even then I was focused on theater and film and television, my own movies. So I kind of was like, oh, that's neat, but just kind of would show up to do the jobs when they asked me to, but wasn't focused on it. And then, it kind of became obvious that it was, to me, it became obvious that it was a huge deal when they invited me to, I think it was 2003. The Funimation was like, would you like to go to San Diego Comic-Con? And I was like, yes. And they were like, we'll pay for your plane ticket. I was like, that's awesome. We'll give you a hotel. I was like,
you
perfect.
You had me at Comic-Con.
And we, they gave me a stipend and I drove with my whole family out there because we're like, it's a chance to go to San Diego. We stopped by the Grand Canyon on the way out there.
That's awesome.
I still thought while we were driving out there, I thought I was going to be, I didn't know what I was doing. They invited me to a convention. I just assumed, because actors do promotions at conventions all the time. You know, they'll be hired by a, you know, some you know, manufacturer, and you'll sit there with some weird widget at a table and be like, these are the best gonculators you can buy in the industry. And so they give you a script and you learn it, and you stand at a booth all day trying to sell gonculators to the gonculator crowd. And so I assumed I was going to be like, this was during Yu Yu Hakusho. I assumed I was going to be like, watch my show, Yu Yu Hakusho. It's a great show. I thought that's what I was going to be doing. And then I got there, I got to the hotel, and they had, you know, a guest handler, and he was like, okay, your first signing is from 1 to 4. And I was like, what do you mean signing? And they were like, you're going to be signing autographs. And I was like, this is stupid. Nobody's going to want my autograph. What are you talking about? I'm like, okay, this is the dumbest. I'm like, we don't have flyers to pass out or anything. They're like, no, people will bring things for you to sign. I'm like, crazy. Nobody's going to bring anything.
You're like, stop it.
Yeah, I really.
Where are the cameras at? Is Ashton Kutcher? Yeah. Where are you at?
Yeah. And they sat me down and first of all, San Diego Comic-Con, even back then, 20 years ago, was massive. You know, it takes 40 minutes just to walk from the hotel to the convention center. And then once you're at the convention center, it's another 20 or 30 minutes to get to the table. Mm-hmm. So you'd have to plan, you know, from hotel to signing. It was, you know, an hour and a half just to make sure you're there on time. And I got sat down at the table. And we're in one of the halls. It's one of the smaller halls. There's vendors all around. And we're at a table, and there's some, you know, the entrance is behind us, like 6 doors. And we're kind of on this little stage area. I think it was me and John Bergmeyer, if I recall correctly, who played Kurama, and I played Hiei. And so we're sitting there, and I was like, see, this is stupid. There's nobody here. Because there was nobody in front of the table, and they were like, are you guys ready? And I'm like, ready for what? There's nobody here. What are we supposed to do? And they because I had seen in the hall, it was a giant hall, there was a line around the outside wall of the hall, and they kind of keep the line from blocking the traffic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they were like, no, Chuck, that's your line. That's the line of people waiting to meet you. And I was like, what? And they had like put some Sharpies down, and they were like, release the hounds. And suddenly I was like, what is like, I had no idea. I was like, what is happening? And like the first girl that came up, she had been in line for, I think she told me she'd been in line for like 4 or 5 hours or something. And she had watched all of Yu Yu Hakusho while her dad was dying of cancer. And they loved Hiei, and Hiei was their favorite, and her dad had since passed. And her biggest thing in life was that she wanted to meet the voice of Hiei because it reminded her. And I was like totally unprepared for it. And then, but she gave me she set the bar for me for the next 20 years where I had to, and all voice actors, I think, to a person, understand that the job at the table is to be present for people who found the show important in their lives, either because they had trouble at school, trouble at home, trouble with parents, whatever it was. Anime was an escape for people, and we were the 3D representatives of these characters, and they could finally have someone to personally thank for what the anime did for them. So we're like the 3D representatives of the anime in the real world. So we can receive that gratitude and love, and we can give that gratitude and love back. And so I understood that really quick, right at that first signing, and it sort of set the tone for the next 20 years.
Absolutely. And I would imagine for you on the other end of it, because like you had mentioned, like Chris Sabat, like you and Chris, like your normal speaking voices are very akin to, like 17, Hiei, Vegeta, Piccolo. So right. It's just like, I would imagine you have, other voice actors, friend of the podcast, Amanda C. Miller, voice of Boruto, she doesn't really sound like Boruto. She puts on the performance when she gets in the character. But, like with you, when you talk about like the 3D representation, and I know for Trav, he's humble, so he won't say it, Hiei is probably one of his favorite anime characters of all time. So it's like, it's surreal moments having conversation. It's just like, man, this guy was the voice track of my childhood. Like the soundtrack of my childhood. Like it's definitely a surreal moment. But I definitely want Trav to like get into his UU bag because I know he's been chomping at the bit.
Nah, it's all good.
A case could be made that you have voiced probably two of the most like punk rock characters of all time in terms of like he ain't 17. Like when you got those roles and you were like, you know, going through the motions, doing your prep, getting these episodes and, you know, like laying the work. Did you realize like how big that these characters were going to get? Especially because like they're like more 17 than he, but like they're like main character adjacent. Or 17 was, you know, like a plot device to like move the story forward and like help us get to Cell and whatnot, what have you. But like for whatever reason, whether it was the outfit, the bandana, the gun that he never uses, like,
all for sure.
Just like latched on. Yeah, people just latched on to him, and it just like kind of just like took a life of its own. Like 17's fandom. Did you feel that like when you were like boots on the ground in it, like voicing these characters?
Not when we're voicing. When we're voicing, it's very much about our own lives and about the fun we're having in the studio. We're not, we're concerned acting wise, sort of artistically. What am I doing moment to moment in the show? How can we make this moment the best? Now, Yu Yu Hakusho was a little different because we had done Dragon Ball Z and had started Dragon Ball because we did DBZ first and then went back and did Dragon Ball.
Yep.
And had started Dragon Ball, but so Dragon Ball kind of felt like the same as DBZ. It was the same, general property. But when Yu Yu came along, the idea was that this was going to be the next big thing. And we all knew DBZ had become big. And so there was a little bit higher bar in terms of our attitude in the studio. Because during DBZ, we just goofed around. I mean, it was not... And you can kind of tell from that first, the DBZ as opposed to Kai, like original DBZ is very loose. It's pretty loose because it was just a bunch of young adults having fun. But when we got to Yu Yu Hakusho, it was more. There was a little bit more seriousness about it, a little bit more professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
There was a greater sense of professionalism with it. We had moved from the downstairs kind of crappy studio into the upstairs of the building.
Moving on up
to some nicer studio. Yeah. And it was a little bit. There was occasionally a receptionist at the front, and you'd be like, "Oh, a receptionist." Most of the time, there wasn't.
We made it.
Just kind of yeah. But so it was. There was a little bit more of a seriousness to the job that we were doing, a little bit more professionalism, but I didn't. So when you're doing it, you're concerned about the acting and the hours, like how many hours am I getting? How many lines do I got? Am I in the next 4 episodes? Because they were done in 4 episodes. I got an electric bill to pay. Am I in the next 4 episodes? So you're worried about sort of daily life stuff. It's not until we get to the conventions that we start to concern ourselves with the impact that it's having on people or its connection to the fans.
So you've been a part of many franchises, and I love to ask this question to the voice actors that we interview, but out of all the franchises, who would you say has the craziest fan base? And like when you immediately like, well, okay, they're serious about it.
Well, okay, so DBZ's got to take the it's got to take the crown for fan base, and there's a definite extra. There's this athletic, martial art, professional wrestling crew. Like there's a DBZ bro pods, and there'll be like 6 dudes. They're all jacked. They're all wearing tees, and they'll come up to the table like, and you're like,
over 9,000 t-shirts I've seen at the gym.
Oh yeah, you already know.
That's right.
Or the Saiyan armor tank tops, like with the printed Saiyan armor.
Yeah. So that fan base is strong, and that fan base has gone from being the sort of DBZ bro pods into it being like, professional athletes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So suddenly, professional athletes are doing, homages in the end zone, or got DBZ on their sneakers, or, or designing, their armor after Vegeta or whatever it is. And suddenly you're like, oh, those jacked kids are now professional athletes. So that's where that kind of went to. But as far as like crazy fan bases, like rabid, insane fan bases, there's always, so as the young people get into anime, they want to belong and they will grab onto certain anime and say, this is ours. And there'll be this like core group of people who all love a certain anime. And it shifts from year to year. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was an independent animation called Homestuck for a while. And so there were all these Homestuck kids, and they were always the younger kids. And that kind of transferred into Hetalia, and there were all these young Hetalia kids who all loved that. I think now they're more like Demon Slayer, but now it's so broad that they kind of now all feed into My Hero Academia. And so I'd say those My Hero fans and Demon Slayer fans are pretty. They're strong, present up front right now for sure.
Yeah, that's a popular answer.
And like it's so funny you talked about like the different factions of anime, because one of the biggest, and we talk about this all the time, but one of the biggest reasons we started this podcast was because like it almost felt like people that looked like Matt and myself, we had to keep our anime fandom to ourselves, because it was almost looked at as like, whoa, why are you this old still watching cartoons? Or like when you mentioned before, when you were first presented with Dragon Ball, you're like, this sounds like a porn. Where like at the time, I'd had kids like, wait, oh, you're into that like that hentai? I was like, no, not at all. Like that's right. But now though, it's definitely a lot more like mainstream and accepted, and almost to the point where I'm like meeting less people that don't watch anime than versus do. Where before it was kind of like, yo, Matt, did you watch the new Gundam Wing? Like
100%, man.
Yeah, I did, bro.
100%.
Meet me over by the tree at recess. We'll talk about it.
I was my niece came home. My brother lives up in Milwaukee, and she came home. I was visiting, and she came home, and she said something. She was complaining about something, and she was a dancer and the cheer squad, I think, and she came home and she was like, something Cheryl, such a wannabe nerd. And I was like, hold up. Wannabe nerd? What do you mean? She's like, well, she says she watches anime, but she doesn't really watch it. I'm like, wait a minute. So now you can be a wannabe nerd? Flip. Like, we used to have to hide that shit. Like, we used to have to not let you know because we get pummeled by the sportos who would be like, cartoons are stupid, and they beat you or whatever.
That's so funny you say that, because and also another reason why we started, because now we were starting to see like the well actually crowd are like, oh, if you can't talk about anime unless you're just talking like the specific and like the historical context of it, but it's just like, man, we talk about it in a barbershop talk fashion, like we're definitely fans, but definitely don't need to be like, well, this source came out in 1999 in the chapter 47 of volume 5. Like, it's just
right. Page 6, third panel to the right.
Well, growing up, when I was a kid, when I was, like freshman, sophomore in college in Chicago, there was a video store that had a wall. And that's like the first time I was aware of anime. I'd watched, Speed Racer and Battleship Yamamoto, and I didn't know they were anime. They were just what I considered, especially Battleship Yamamoto, what I consider G-Force, what I considered more serious cartoons. Yeah. So it was like we had cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons, which were, Bugs Bunny, Tom and Jerry, etc.
Bugs Bunny is my spirit animal.
I can see that. But during the week after school, from like 3 to 5, they'd have, it was like Battleship Yamamoto was the one that really stuck with me. It was problematic though, because it wasn't on video. And so if you missed, you never really knew what was going on, because you never got to get. Sometimes I get a good 3 or 4 days in a row where I saw it, and so I'd get a little bit of the plot of what was going on. But it was in college that I kind of really recognized, oh, this is what anime is. animation from Japan, and they treat it more seriously, and it's not just for kids, it's for adults. And the first one that blew my mind was Akira. And Akira was just an amazing film. And I didn't know what happened to me when I saw it. I was like, holy cow, I don't even know what that was. And we Gunslinger Girl, Cowboy Bebop.
A great one.
We tried. Yeah, we tried to watch those, but you'd get episodes 1 through 4, and then 5 through 8 would never be in, and you'd be like, we can't watch it in order, and we couldn't watch it out of order. So we mostly stuck to movies back in the day, because you could see a movie and enjoy it and not be frustrated for 2 months waiting for these kids today. All streams right to their phone.
They don't know the struggle.
They don't know how hard it was. They don't know the struggle was real back in the day.
Oh yeah, well,
me and Trav have talked about before in previous episodes. Like I can remember back when Inuyasha came out in real time, back when you could only watch it on like Adult Swim. And I remember it wasn't dubbed past a certain point. So they would always get to it and then restart the show all over again. Yeah. And then each time it would come back, they would go one episode further. And you'd be like, yes, they're finally going to finish it. And then no, they would restart it again. And it took so long. I was I can't deal with this anymore.
It's true.
So you would just go on strike and come back and hope they would further along, but they're only in the second season. You're like, oh man, I still got 50 more episodes before they get to the end. Yeah. But that's funny that you say that about it was such a commitment and so stressful and such a tease, because it's you would get great episodes, and then they would give you the next time. And they would give you the little preview, shorts of what was coming, and then that episode would never come, or they would skip past it.
By the time you return, you forget.
So many things. Yeah, I have no idea what's happening now. But yeah, that was super stressful. I remember that. That vividly. That era of Toonami and stuff like that. But was Speed Racer considered an anime? I never looked at Speed Racer as an anime. Yeah. You said it, I was like, oh, that makes total sense. But I never looked at it as an anime.
It was because when you go to when you look at the Japanese, the way they look at anime, Speed Racer would have been considered a kids anime. Battleship Yamamoto would have been considered, young adult, high school ish anime or adult anime. And then, of course, they go all the way to actual adult anime, which we don't need to get into. But I remember the first time I was at a convention and I was walking past the video. They had rooms where they were playing videos, and one of them had the door closed and said hentai. And I'm like, oh, hentai? What's that? I was like, And they had to close the door.
Whoa.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, I've told the story before where my first introduction of just the wide range of anime was I think I was 6th grade, and this was when 6th or 7th grade, but this was when On Demand first was introduced with the TV networks. And so there was Anime Network On Demand. Right. And I was like, oh sweet, because I had just gotten Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing, Yu Yu, and there was just this one. I thought it was going to be some vampire hunter type thing, and I was like, oh cool, no, this sounds interesting. And then the first scene was just so morbid, and I was just like, ugh. I was like, I thought this stuff's supposed to be for kids. And I was like, wait, hold on. I turned it off so quick. Let's see if my parents were around to see what the hell I was watching.
That's always the time your parents walk in. When it's a scene like Oolong wearing Bulma's panties on his head is when your parents walk past. What is this? I swear this isn't how the show goes.
What are you watching?
Well, that's why I play Shao Tucker in Full Metal Alchemist, and that's a universally traumatizing character for the anime fandom. And I think it's because parents were like, DBZ, it's basically good guys, bad guys fighting. There's nothing really bad about it. It's fine. And then Full Metal came along and they're like, oh, it's probably the same. It's another one of those. And they just let their 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds watch it. And it scarred them. People were, little kids were like, they shouldn't do that to a child and a dog.
Beat me to it.
So there's a universal trauma that I get to be a part of integrating for people when they come up to the table and they're They're like, when I was 8, I had nightmares for 12 nights in a row because of you, and I'm like, I'm so happy.
Oh man,
All your fault.
We had watched my fiance had watched Full Metal, and when we got to that episode, it ended, and she just looks at me and goes, "That was dark."
Super dark.
She starts looking at you differently. But I'm so happy that you actually had brought that up, Chuck, because we were fortunate enough to speak with Brina Palencia, who voice acted Nina and the Chimera version of Nina in that. Yeah. And she kind of gave us like her take of her experience of like experiencing that from her side. You as like the perpetuator of all that that evil. Like, can you give us like your the memories that you have of like filming like that series of episodes for Full Metal?
Yeah. So, it's funny because Brina and I recorded that before we really knew each other. I'd met her once when she was in like a freshman in college. I think I taught a workshop at her college, and she was just a kid. And then I knew she was doing voices at Funimation. And but then she ended up in one of my lead in one of my movies, and I ended up being a director of photography on a web series that she produced. And then I worked really closely with her and her husband in a film production company, and Chris Sabat for several years. And so she and my children were in her wedding, the ring bearer and flower girl.
Wow.
And little kids. And
you're trying to make up for what that character
we've
did?
known each for what I did. That's right. For what I did to her.
You owed her that.
When I recorded it, I thought it was freaking hysterical. I thought it was the funniest thing. I was like, "That's awesome!" Oh, no, Edward. I was like,
Big
"Oh, that's
brother.
hilarious, man!" Yeah, Big Brother. I was like, "Oh, that's dope." I was like, "That's so hard. That's cool." And then I watched the series, and I was like, "What did I do? What did I do?
What have I done?
What did I do?" I was like, "Oh, that's terrible." I was like, "Now I understand." But like recording it, I don't care what you're in a film and you get shot in the head. You're like, "Yeah, right. I got shot in the head," and then you see it, and you're like, "Oh, that's sad." Right. But so the experience of creating the art is always different than the experience of experiencing the art. So the creating it was great. It was hilarious. I thought it was fun.
The execution, horrifying.
Watching it afterwards,
you're like texting, being like, "Hey,
eye-opening."
I didn't mean to laugh during that scene."
Right.
Sorry,
just on occasion, like, "Hey, sorry for what Mr. Tucker did."
You know that's not me, right?
Brian, that ain't me.
But is it?
Does it ever like you being a parent? I have 2 children and stuff like that, and I hope that what we're creating here leaves like a lasting impression that my kids, when they get older, can like look back like my dad did that. Does it ever like does the weight of like that you're a part of like forever moments for like a lot of people, does that ever like creep into your head like, man, like I like that's something that I was a part of that literally has gone length to length? Because like what happened to Nina Tucker or 17, even like I said, we were talking about how Garlic Jr. is like a very underappreciated villain from Dragon Ball. Like that is stuff that I'm often caught off guard when I come across people a lot younger than me who are like super knowledgeable about things that you weren't even alive for. And it's just like the staying power of a lot of what you've done. Like you as a father, just you as like, a professional, like, does that ever like, do you ever like well up inside? like, yeah, like I did that.
It is definitely, I mean, I have been an actor since I was 15. And so I've been doing it for 37 years now. And I did it very sporadically between 15 and 19, and then started pretty seriously at age 19, got my SAG card, my AFTRA card, my equity card. And so I've been pro hardcore since 19. And I have friends, colleagues who have succeeded incredibly. Michael Shannon and I used to compete in Chicago for roles all the time. I would get, I would get the Goodman Theater role, and he would get the Steppenwolf one. I'd get the Steppenwolf one, and because there was an age range that we were at. Nick Offerman was another colleague. He drove me to one of my first big film gigs.
Hey, Parks and Rec.
Yeah. And so, like, I've had friends, colleagues who have succeeded, and they're two like primo examples who have succeeded really well. But right underneath that are a bunch of actors who have had very successful film and television careers, who struggle at times to keep their career afloat, moving forward, paying the bills, et cetera, et cetera. And because of the strength of the anime fandom and the strength of the art form, in that it will last forever. Android 17 will be like Pepe Le Pew, or he's not Bugs Bunny, but maybe he's Foghorn Leghorn. I don't know, but
there you go.
He's going to be a character associated with people's childhoods forever now, and it'll continue in different incarnations. And as an actor, you want to have an impact artistically. And we don't have that much of it. Like I said, we're surfers on the wave of anime. So we're not creating the art. We're not defining the characters so much as we are participating in them. But as an actor, to be able to look back over 35 years of acting and know that, for the last 15 years at least, I could pretty much go to any English-speaking city in the world and say, tweet, would anybody like to come for coffee? And I'd have people show up and want to sit down and chat. And that's not, that's an incredible blessing to have this fandom that is so supportive, and a structure that we've all worked to create. Yeah. That we've all worked to create the sort of structure of the anime fandom. All the voice actors, all the vendors, all the conventions, all the fans, all the, DBZ abridged, all the sort of ancillary products, podcasts, everything. Everybody has worked together to make this what it is. And that's different from Hollywood, where Hollywood is a system that's based on money and sort of connection and privilege, and they own the marketing of the, anime didn't get marketed like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Anime happened because the fans were there first. Mm-hmm. And so that gives you a strength in your career. And I look at, I get a little embarrassed knowing that I have hundreds and hundreds of panels of Q&As recorded where I'm acting the fool. And I remember when my wife and I were courting. We were courting. I was recently divorced and met her. And I remember one time she texted me. She's like, "My mom's looking you up on YouTube."
You're like, wait, what's she looking at?
I didn't think about like
what has she seen so far?
Yeah, like what year is she looking into?
That's right. So I was like, I got introduced to her family in a way that you normally aren't introduced to people. Nowadays with the internet, but especially with this career, we put ourselves out there a lot, and so we end up being, part of the culture in a way that is lasting and will last forever. And that's
you should have just said that was you from a different timeline. Just could have been like, hey,
I'm not worried about it.
As Universe 6.
I'm not. I am. Everybody who knows me knows I am who I am, and nothing anybody thinks or says is going to change that. If there's one thing I know, everybody in this industry knows that's one thing that
you are singing my song, sir.
That's right.
I'm unapologetically myself.
Yeah, why be anyone else?
That's all I'm saying. But I love hearing you, talk about like your dalliances with, Nick Offerman, Michael Shannon. Cause like, it's funny cause I'm a huge Michael Shannon fan. And it was weird cause like my first memory of him was like him in 8 Mile. So like when he got like casted as Zod, I was like, Greg Buse playing Zod. I was like, that's a terrible casting choice. And then he like killed it, and I was like, oh, the range. I was like, wow, this man is amazing.
He's genuinely one of the most interesting people you would ever
I can
meet
imagine
in person. He is just has a presence about him that is definitely built for a character like that. But he is a genuinely sweet, super kind person. But we went head. It was down to me and him and one other person for a role in Groundhog Day. So he's in Groundhog Day, and it's like the last scene. He's the boyfriend of the girl, and they get the tickets to I forget what it is, but every time I watch Groundhog Day, I was like, I remember that casting session. I remember being called back. I remember being called back again. It all works out.
Absolutely. But you're also the reason why I wanted to kind of go back to Michael Shannon and the guy from it, because you're in a very interesting spot to where you've done voice acting and live acting and even theater now. You've kind of run the gambit with everything. And a lot of the voice actors that we've had the pleasure of interviewing, a lot of them typically just stayed voice because, they would consider themselves to, not be extroverted and don't really necessarily want to be in front of the camera. But you had mentioned like early on, like you had kind of started theater first. Was that like a learning curve for you to have to like figure out how to emote with your voice and not have to like use your face and like facial expressions and like just like my tonality is what I have to use to like be an actor now?
Well, it's interesting. At the beginning, back in the day when Funimation was casting people, the sort of serious actors in town. Up until like the last 4 or 5 years, it was still that way. The last 4 or 5 years, people have kind of let go of their pretension and are like, oh, I can go to a convention. I can show up at a convention and make some cash and meet some fans. They've kind of dropped the pretense of that. But at the beginning, especially, it wasn't considered acting. And I think it's because the difficulty in anime voice acting can be very frustrating for very good actors because there are constraints in it that don't lend themselves to increased creativity. And let me explain. In Shakespeare, you work with iambic pentameter. So there's a rhythm in a verse that you are obligated to. And if you are deviating from that, you're probably not a very good actor. You are part of a tribe, a brotherhood of artists who have done Shakespeare. And so, but the verse gives you a freedom. It gives you a creativity that you never felt or saw before. Anime voice acting, I oftentimes call it the most creative, the most fun data entry you've ever done in your life, because you are essentially at the service of the picture and the mouth flaps. And so it's a very constraining creative process. And for actors who are really, really good, there are a lot of really amazing actors who auditioned at Funimation and either initially got in and then decided they didn't like it, or just didn't want to do it because of the sort of restrictions that dub work puts on you. It is a separate version of acting. You don't have to have it memorized. You don't have to put on a costume. You're not doing a long scene. Many times you're just doing one line at a time. You're constrained to what's already been drawn. So you may have an impulse for a line, but it's drawn in a way that you can't follow that impulse. So you have to change your impulse as an actor. And we have to do that all the time when a director asks us to, or the action reaction that happens to us. We're dealing with our partner. There's no partner to deal with. You're dealing with the drawing. And so it's a constraining creative process that makes really good actors frustrated. If I'm being honest, it frustrates me too. I've become very good at it, but it is different from stage acting or film acting. It is very much easier in many ways because of the constraints. Let me put it this way. I think so many people are attracted to voice acting because of the simplicity and ease of it. I can pretty much get anybody to get me what I need them to give me in voice acting, other than fight reactions. Sometimes people just can't get fight reactions, like they don't physically understand how to do it. But you know, it is an attractive acting process for people because of the sort of anonymity of it, and because you make a mistake and you immediately get to correct it. If you're on a set and they've held traffic and the helicopter shot's coming and you got 80 people on the crew,
we gotta get that shot.
And you forget your line, it's a big deal. If you forget your line on stage, it's a huge deal. Yeah. You know, it is a traumatic, adrenaline fueled event in your life that you will remember forever. There's almost nothing that happens in the booth that's that traumatic.
I would imagine the appeal for voice acting and getting to wear like PJs to work every day. It's like
100%.
That's a big thing too.
100%. I won't tell you, but there is much that I've recorded from home totally naked. No,
as you should. Hey, look, if I had it like that, if there wasn't a camera facing me now,
Budokai, just know Android 17 when you're playing it.
When the pandemic hit and we started working remotely, oh man, like, well, it was funny. I hadn't worn jeans in probably that whole year because I was just like, I didn't leave. I just wore joggers. Like there was no need for me to wear jeans. So like, I'd be getting out of the shower and being like, oh shit, I got to call at one to go on. Like, oh, do we want to turn on our cameras on? Nope, not me. I don't think you want me to.
Man,
that's right.
I save so much on laundry detergent during the pandemic, bro. I'm not going anywhere. I don't need clothes.
Nobody. I don't think my wife went anywhere for 6 months. I remember the first time she went out. It was an event. She was like, I haven't been out in the world.
The first time that I had
to
go to a wedding post pandemic was like the first time that I tied a tie since. I would do it obviously regular going into the office, but then I was like, I had to go on YouTube for a quick tutorial because I forgot how to do it. I was like, shit, okay.
Remind yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Muscle memory, baby. Muscle memory.
I do have one last UU question before I do want to ask you another question about a project that you're working on. But a lot of fans have been clamoring for either a reboot or extension of Yu Yu Hakusho. But, I personally think that the story ended the way that it should have. I mean, obviously, if it were to ever get a reboot or the story extended, I'm clearly going to watch. But what are your thoughts on that when you hear people say, like, oh, they wish that the story will continue or if they reboot it in some sort of way?
I'm all in favor of it. It's a show that was, it's weird. Little kids coming up being Yu Yu Hakusho, like people are discovering it again. And so there's this sort of groundswell of people who love Yu Yu Hakusho. And it is, I think it's worthy. I think it's worthy of a reboot or a continuation. Give it the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood treatment, stick a little more closely to the manga or continue where it left off. And, it's, for a lot of people, Yu Yu Hakusho ended and they went, is that the end? Like it felt, I was okay with it.
Same.
I thought it ended fine. I thought it wrapped up as well as it could at that point. There was definitely more to tell, that there was definitely more to explore in terms of relationships, especially Yukina and Chie and Kuwabara. I mean, you could get into all sorts of shenanigans.
Shit, even in the demon realm.
That's right. I think it's worthy. I think it's going to. I believe it's going to happen. I believe that it'll
don't get me too excited now.
For sure.
I've always felt like they would have to work out the logistics, and there obviously would be some type of continuity issues. But I've always felt that Yu Yu and Bleach were cousin properties, and I always wish there'd be a subtle nod that they took place in the same universe. Yusuke's basically a Soul Reaper, basically.
Yeah.
So I always wish that they were connected
Yeah.
somehow. Like there was like a through line that like brought those two things
And
together.
Yu Yu is the only
like, super
anime
dope.
that I listen to the intro song every single time an episode airs. Like all other anime, I'll just see like if it's a new intro, I'll watch it once and then I'll just skip through it for the other episodes. Yu Yu, never skip. Always bopping the smile bomb.
It's a great intro. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
That's
It is a
how
great intro.
That's how I felt about Digimon. Can't never skip the Digimon intro. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta let that go.
So my next question though, well actually there's it kind of leads into the next question, but Apple did recently announce the Apple Vision Pro, and during our pre-interview call, you had mentioned you were working on digital/3D artwork. Well, first, talk a little about the creative development behind that, and then also, how do you envision the role that something like an Apple Vision Pro can play into bringing this new creative into life?
Breaking news.
I'm using my camera, or otherwise I'd show you the what I've attached. I've attached it. I'm actually, once I finish this, I'm working on an announcement to let all my fans know. But I've attached augmented reality to all of my prints, so that when you point your camera at this, it opens up that scene and you watch the scene play out on this print. And some of the other ones, some of the other ones I've done, I've used an app called, it's two apps, one called Publish AR, and there's one called Revive. Publish AR it's a way that anybody can put augmented reality anywhere. And so I'm doing that with all my prints, and there's some conventions that want to do it. But I also use an app called Revive, so that like the print stays the same, but the mouth of the print and the head kind of move using AI, so that and you add your voice to it. So I have some of my prints now that when you point your camera at it, they come to life and just start talking to you like it's Harry Potter. So I think it's fun. I think it's a neat way to reconnect with people who maybe 20 years ago bought a print, and now they're going to be able to like download this app and the print's going to come to life. And then I can change what I say in the print. So the prints may say one thing this year, and then next month or this month, and then next month, maybe I'll change them and make them do something different. So suddenly
That's
this
amazing
experience that you had with your favorite voice actor becomes a continuing experience. You get to connect with them and continue, And as from a voice actor standpoint, all my prints, I have my camera booted up, and you want to hear me do the line, and we don't mind. I don't mind personally. I don't mind. Someone says, "Would you do the Dragon of the Darkness Flame?" And I do it. But now my Hiei print, you just point the camera at it, and it's the Dragon of the Darkness Flame scene. So Hiei suddenly busts out into Dragon of the Darkness Flame in the print. And from a voice actor standpoint, doing tons of conventions, every time you don't have to shred your voice at the table, and this gives you, it's a bonus. I can let fans point their camera and hear the lines right there with me standing with.
You're like, I got you. Hold on,
and it's perfect. It's exactly the way it was in the show. I don't have to imitate it.
I may or may not ask you to shred your voice right now, though, for a Dragon of the Darkness Flame.
Dragon of the Darkness Flame!
There you go. He does that in the OVA, too. Have you seen those OVAs? Yeah. So I got to do Dragon
one of my
of the
favorite
Darkness
scenes,
Flame,
if not
which
favorite,
was
from
cool.
LPAs.
It's
concept
pretty amazing.
Cause so we often say here, cause we're in it, it's like real hard for us to sometimes look outside and count our wins, when big things happen for having you here, this is a major victory for us, but because we're in it, I'm sure it won't hit us until tomorrow, PA and Android 17 was on the podcast. But this concept, that's game changing. I feel like that could take comics to the next level. Like if that could develop into, like whole mangas, just go over your phone and it plays out like every panel like that. Man, that's like next level stuff.
I was talking to some convention owners, and you know how everybody has their badge, and one of the things that I was saying that they could do with this app is you point your every fan that's there every day, you point your camera at the badge and it tells you what's up that day. I would literally pop up on the badge and be like, don't forget the cosplay contest is at 5:30. My signing's from here to here. And there's got this panel, then this panel. And then there's the rave tonight in the ballroom B or whatever. So and the other things, some of the other things they're talking about doing with the app is being able to geotag. Like you'd be able to. So imagine Mr. Beast is going to release a new video. Instead of releasing it online, he could release it in like the downtowns of 32 different cities. So you'd have to go downtown and point your camera at maybe a Mr. Beast poster or whatever, and it would erupt to life and be his new video. So suddenly, instead of just like everybody in their home, by themselves watching the new Mr. Beast video, suddenly there's 20,000 people in downtown Fort Worth who want to see it that day, and everybody watches it. Everybody laughs at the same time together. Everybody, goofs at the same time together. And then the video's over and everybody puts their phones down and their eyes are open and they're in a park or in a town square or by a movie theater or restaurant. Suddenly it's like an instant way to drop a convention somewhere.
Man, that's crazy. That's like super like ground level versions of like hologram communication that we see in like Star Wars and stuff like that. Like you can like expand.
Here, let me see if I can.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
Let me see if I can switch it. Let me switch my camera. It's not letting me. Hold on. I'm not going anywhere.
No, I'll take your time. Yeah, that's
why
wild.
is it? It's not letting me use my. If I can switch my camera, it's not letting me switch it to the computer. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix this.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
My mind's moving like a mile a minute to like what this could turn into.
Hold on. I'm gonna refresh it now. See, I got to use my camera to be able to. It's not letting me switch to my computer camera. Why isn't it not?
Technology.
I can't. It's saying I can't switch cameras while it's recording.
Oh, because you're in use. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Are you on your phone or like a?
Yeah. I got my phone.
If you want to turn your phone camera to the screen, that might work. It might look a little pixelated. Yeah, I was about to say.
Let me see.
Would that work?
Yeah.
Because you would need the camera to like scan the image.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what? I mean, if y'all want, hold on. I mean, if y'all want, hold on one sec. I'll go grab.
Mortals, listen up. It's your god of destruction, Beerus here. Subscribe and follow the Dragon Ball for Life podcast, or else you shall be erased from existence. Hakai.
Here it is. So like in my line, so when I got my line of people, I pass this out to the line and it says, download this app here. And then you scan this QR code. Hold on, it needs more light. So you scan the QR code and then, oh, this is complicated.
Yes. Yeah, I do see that.
Oh,
see that?
Wow. That's crazy.
Wait, I can do this. Wait, there it is.
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so and it's got audio to it. Wait, I gotta turn it on.
Crazy.
Here, let's look at the Android 17 one here. Right. Here. Okay. Here.
Help other people. Look at me being all human.
Yeah, so
Yo,
just
that's next.
There we go.
Man,
yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's a lot of fun.
yeah, that's
a lot of fun.
crazy. Like,
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
the application of that has so
Hell yeah.
much potential for so many dope things.
Oh yeah.
Like birthday cards. Like,
Oh yeah. Christmas cards, wedding announcements, all of it.
Shit,
all of
man, I
it.
have to do that for
And
mine. For my save the
Apple
dates.
X.
look, I know, right? Look, I'm saying.
That's right. Yeah. It's super simple to do too. I'm making a tutorial of how to do it to show other voice actors how to do it. Because what I think is going to happen is eventually fans will be coming up to the table and being like, "Your prints don't talk and move," and I'll be like,
Right. Uncultured swine.
"Right, exactly."
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'll come back when you get some moving print.
Yeah, and then the video at the end, you get to put any link you want at the end of the video, so that like that little piece of marketing material, print marketing material that you use, which essentially is what we're doing, is print marketing. At the end, it's got a link. You click on the link, and it goes to your fan page or your
Might
store
need to do that, Matt.
or whatever. It's pretty cool. It's going to be, because the Apple XR thing is cool, but it's $3,500, so that's not going to be a lot of people playing.
Right.
But everybody, I mean, how many 3 billion smartphones all over the world. Everybody can do this, and you can do it. It takes me, I don't know, it takes me maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes to make one of those. So it's super simple.
Hey, game changing. When this blows up, we as a trio, we're taking credit for it.
All right, yeah, we'll say we were the ones who
This
pushed it.
episode, this was the tip of the spear. This is the tip of the spear on this
That's
day,
right.
June 14th, 2023, depending on where you're at in the
Recognize.
world.
So y'all late.
Like,
Y'all
I
late.
told y'all this was the wave. Hey,
Yeah, it's basically YouTube. It's like YouTube, but for the real world. So like you'll
Yeah,
be pointing your
crazy.
camera at stuff, and stuff just will erupt to life.
this could be the end of people learning to read as we know it. Everyone's just gonna everyone's gonna have the book talking.
They
So
just
I'm
talk
like,
to
I
me.
never learned how to read. I just got the book to talk to me. I'm an amazing
there
public
was-
speaker, but I can't read.
Yeah, oops. So there was one. My wife is in advertising and marketing, so I mocked up something for her, like this. Check this out.
Yeah.
So that's Minority Report, and then this is the Cheez-Its box. This is how long it takes to make this happen. Watch. So this is just screen recording on my phone. You crop the picture nice and tight. You got a target video. You open, create a project, click the picture, drop the video on top of the picture, squeeze it, push it, make sure it's centered where you want it. You put whatever you want the link to be at the end of it, and then you test it.
Oh,
It's like,
I
oh,
like crunchy. We like eating Cheez-Its.
That's crazy. Hey, this is wild. Oh, and you move the box and it
Might
goes
need
with
to
the
do some
box.
DB4L.
Man, yo, yo, this is next level, yo. Like, this is next level. Like, what? Like,
what I was-
we
that's what I
do
was
these on
thinking.
like the coffee mugs.
oh yeah. Stop talking. But yeah, at the end, you click on the link.
I know, all right? Let's look. We gonna bleep
And then
out
you go to the Cheez-Its.
We gonna bleep out
That's right.
these last couple parts. We're gonna bleep out.
yeah.
Whatever you need, man. Keep it.
Right.
We'll keep it in house for now.
Keep it in
Get
house.
the traction.
Man,
It'll surge at some point, but you can be first.
no, that is like my mind is like that is
Yeah, it's super
crazy.
cool.
That is crazy. We could be stuck on that for like a whole nother hour, Chuck. But I know like you
Sounds like a plan.
No, well, I'll come back and we'll talk
No,
about it.
I was gonna say once you come on here once, we consider you a forever repeat guest, Chuck. But
All right.
before we close this bad boy out, if you could let the people know how they can support you, where they can find you, your socials, what you got going on. The floor
Absolutely.
is yours.
ChuckHuber.org is where you'll find most of my stuff. I teach classes online. I got a couple master classes coming up in July. One of them is like dialects and acting technique, and the other one is classical monologue and improv and auditions. I'm Android Huber on TikTok. My wife makes me do TikTok. She's in charge of that. I'm on Twitter. I don't do much on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok really, but I try to stay alive in there, and I respond to fans when they got questions and stuff. But I always, my email's out there. It's fireflyworks@gmail.com. If you got questions about classes or voice acting or
Awesome.
magic prints that come to life, feel free to hit me up.
I love that. And Brother Trav, you know I always love to give you the
Nah, just
final
I
word
always
if
like to
have
thank
one.
our
You got
guests for
anything
taking
for
the
us before I
time to
close
come
this bad
on
boy
this
out?
the show with us, and just we love to just chop it up and learn more, and just be able to have a nice casual conversation about being nerds. So Matt, as you like to say, instead of open your nerd eye, we're gonna open our Jagan eye for this episode.
Hey.
That's right.
I love it. Well, lifers, we call you guys the lifers because you quite literally put the life in the Dragon Ball for life. So like we always say here on the podcast, whether you watch it,
There we go.
we all need it. So open up your Jagan eye and we will see you next time on Dragon Ball for life.
We love you,
Dodon Ray.
and shout out to y'all. For the next time.
This is Chuck Huber, the voice of Hiei from Yu Yu Hakusho.
Dragon Ball for life!
Of the Darkness Flame.